There is something deeply sacred about the quiet space within us that holds our insecurities, our fears, the places where we feel small, not enough, too broken, too flawed. These are not things we owe to anyone. These are not things to be handed over freely in the name of vulnerability, especially not when the environment is not safe, not when the listener hasn't earned the right to witness those fragile parts of you. You see, your insecurities are not meant to be shared with just anyone, because they carry energy, and once they leave your lips, they live in the hands of whoever receives them. And not every hand is gentle. Not every person has the heart to hold what you've battled with compassion. Some will hold it, examine it, and then, in moments of anger or jealousy, throw it back at you as a weapon. That is not love. That is not support. That is emotional trespassing. And it teaches you something incredibly important, that just because you feel something deeply doesn't mean it needs to be shared widely. When you're in the dark, struggling with a part of yourself that feels wounded, you may long for someone to see it and still accept you. And yes, there will be moments in life when we must open up, when healing requires us to speak aloud the things that haunt us. But timing matters, the person matters, the space matters. There is nothing empowering about bleeding in front of someone who isn't ready to help you heal. There is nothing healthy about handing your heart to someone who doesn't even know how to hold their own. So often, we overshare because we crave connection, not realizing that not all connection is sacred. Some of it is simply access, temporary, surface level, and often dangerous to your spirit. It's okay to have places inside yourself that are just for you. It's okay to carry some battles in silence while you gather strength. You are not being fake. You are being discerning. You are not being cold. You are being conscious of your emotional safety. The world will tell you that sharing is bravery, and yes, it is when shared with the right people. But withholding is also strength. Choosing who deserves to hear the truth of your pain is an act of self-love. You are not hiding. You are protecting. You are preserving what is sacred until you're ready, and until you're in the presence of someone who will not run from the truth of who you are. Some people ask questions not to understand but to judge. Some people pretend to listen while secretly storing your confessions for future ammunition. They don't want to know you, they want to have something on you. This is why you must become the gatekeeper of your truth. Speak your truth, but do it with wisdom. Not every room deserves the weight of your voice. Not every friend is a confidant. Not every moment is a healing one. Your pain is not public property. You don't need to explain your wounds to anyone who hasn't walked beside you with patience, with care, with love that feels like stillness, not pressure. When someone tries to pull information from you that you're not ready to give, listen to your body. If your heart tightens, if your stomach knots, that's your inner self protecting you. That's your soul whispering, not yet, not here. And you must trust that. You must honor that. Your instincts are the voice of your highest self, speaking on behalf of your healing. And you must not silence that voice in the name of being polite or seeming open. You are allowed to keep your deepest stories in the vault of your heart until the moment feels safe enough to release them. And if that moment never comes with certain people, that's not a failure. That's discernment. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. Vulnerability is power when it's offered by choice, not by force. But even vulnerability has boundaries. There is no strength in making yourself available to every energy, every ear, every question. Your strength is in your selection. Your healing is in your silence until your soul says yes. Speak when it feels true, not when it feels demanded. Share when the heart is ready, not when the world is curious. Because in the end, it's not about hiding who you are. It's about honoring who you are. And the most sacred parts of you deserve to be protected, not exposed. There's something powerful about moving in silence. Something profoundly magnetic about doing the inner work, taking the steps, and building your dream away from the noise, away from the spotlight, away from the endless opinions of others. You don't need to announce your next big move. In fact, sometimes the very energy that fuels your breakthrough begins to scatter the moment you start talking about it too early. You see, dreams are delicate in their infancy, goals are sacred while they're forming, plans are not meant to be exposed to every ear before they have roots strong enough to stand on their own. Not because your dream is weak, but because other people's energy can be heavy, and not everyone carries the belief you do. We often rush to tell others what we're about to do because we're excited, or because we need a little validation to give ourselves permission. But if you need others to approve of your dream before you begin, you've already handed them the power to stop you. And sometimes, when you share too soon, what you receive isn't support, it's fear, doubt, projection. People will speak from their own limitations and cloak it as concern. They'll try to make you smaller because your boldness reminds them of everything they didn't do. That's not your burden. That's not your truth. That's not your energy to carry. There's a sacredness in building in silence. When you don't explain yourself, no one has anything to delay you with. When you don't reveal your steps, no one can trip you along the path. You don't need the world to cheer you on to make a move. You don't need the audience before the performance has been rehearsed. The applause will come when it's time. But the real magic happens when you learn to clap for yourself in the quiet moments, when it's just you and the vision, when you're laying brick after brick and no one sees the foundation being built. That is where power lives, in the unseen moments, in the quiet choices, in the hidden sacrifices that nobody knows about. Some people think speaking it out loud makes it more real, but you don't need to speak it to believe it. Belief happens in the body, in the breath, in the moments when you show up again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's thankless, even when no one understands. There is a strength that grows inside you when you move without announcing, when you act without explaining, when you progress without performing. That strength becomes unshakable because it was not built on praise. It was built on purpose. And yes, there will be moments when people ask, "What are you working on? What's next for you?" And you will feel the urge to share. But sometimes the wisest answer is, "I'm working on myself." Or even, "You'll see when it's ready," not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Because not everyone asking is rooting for you, and sometimes the dream just isn't ready to be exposed to outside weather. It's still growing, it still needs warmth, it still needs time. You don't dig up a seed every day just to show others it's growing. You water it in silence, you give it sunlight, you trust the process, and one day it breaks through the soil and blooms beautiful, whole, undeniable. When you keep your plans to yourself, you also stay connected to your why. You're not distracted by feedback, not swayed by outside timelines, not burdened by unsolicited advice. You can stay rooted in your own rhythm, your own truth, your own vision. You're not editing your dream to fit someone else's comfort zone. You're not rushing just to prove something. You're not holding back to avoid judgment. You are free. And freedom is the soil where greatness grows. There is a quiet joy in surprising the world with the life you built when they weren't looking. There's a calm power in showing up one day, not to talk about what you're going to do, but to show what you've done. Let your results speak. Let your consistency shine. Let your growth make the noise. Because when you no longer need to be seen to feel validated, you've already won. And in that stillness, in that quiet creation, something unstoppable is born. There are certain things in life that should remain guarded, not because we are ashamed, but because they are deeply personal and sacred. And one of those things is your family's struggles, the behind, the scenes challenges that not everyone sees, and frankly, not everyone needs to see. It's easy to get caught in the idea that talking about everything makes us authentic, that the more we reveal, the more real we become. But there is a difference between being real and being reckless with private truths. Family problems are not for public consumption. They are not meant to be laid out on the table for the world to dissect. Not everyone you share your story with is coming from a place of love. Some are listening with judgment in their eyes. Some are just gathering information they can later twist, use, or whisper about behind your back when it suits their story better than yours. And it's not always that people are cruel. Sometimes they simply don't understand. They don't know the whole picture. They don't live in your home. They haven't felt the weight of your responsibility. They haven't seen the moments of love behind the chaos. But when you speak of your family's struggles, what they hear is dysfunction. What they remember are the flaws. They won't carry the complexity of your love with them, only the drama. And before long, the people you care about most become characters in someone else's gossip. That is not love. That is not healing. That is exposure without purpose. We must remember that everyone has their own story playing out behind closed doors. Every family has their wounds, their misunderstandings, their healing to do. And yes, sometimes we need support. We need someone to talk to. But that someone should be safe. That someone should be wise. That someone should be someone who holds space, not someone who fills it with noise. Your family is not perfect, but neither is anyone else's. And protecting their privacy is not enabling dysfunction. It's choosing to preserve dignity in a world that so easily forgets how sacred it is. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to say, that's personal. You are allowed to protect the people who raised you, who stood by you, even if they were imperfect. Especially if they were imperfect. Because one day you may find that the people you vented about were the same ones who would have done anything to protect you, even when they didn't know how to show it. Family is complicated. It's filled with both hurt and healing, with love and mistakes, with moments that make us proud and moments that teach us patience. And while your story matters, not all of it needs an audience. Sometimes we vent out of frustration, sometimes out of confusion, and sometimes out of the desperate need to feel heard. But if we're not careful, that moment of release can become a permanent mark on someone else's name. People will remember what you said long after the issue has passed. You may forgive, you may move forward, but they won't forget. And what was once a fleeting moment of emotion becomes a label someone else wears forever in the minds of others. So be mindful, not every friend is a therapist, not every coworker is a confidant, not every moment is an open mic. You have the right to guard your home, to protect the people in it, even as you're learning to navigate them. You can love your family and still acknowledge the hurt. You can be honest with yourself without being careless with their stories. You can speak your truth in healing spaces, not gossip circles. There is a time and a place to share, and there is deep wisdom in choosing silence when silence is what preserves peace. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about honoring the parts of your life that deserve quiet understanding instead of loud opinions. The world doesn't need to know every argument, every wound, every messy detail to validate your journey. You don't owe that kind of transparency to people who haven't earned the trust it takes to hear it. And you certainly don't owe your family's story to people who just want to feed their curiosity. Let love guide your choices. Let respect shape your words, because in the end, what matters most is not how many people knew your struggle, but how deeply you chose to honor those who walked through it with you. There is a kind of beauty in doing good and not needing to be seen for it. A quiet strength in showing up with kindness, offering love, extending a hand, and then simply walking away without leaving a signature behind. In a world that moves louder every day, where every act is broadcasted, captured, posted, liked, shared, it's easy to forget that the most powerful moments often happen in silence. Real kindness doesn't need a spotlight. Real giving doesn't need an audience, and the most meaningful generosity is the kind that leaves no trail except the love it created. You don't need to tell anyone how good you are. You don't need to list all the times you helped, all the times you sacrificed, all the moments when you chose love over ego. The universe already knows, your soul already knows, and those are the only witnesses that matter. When you give just to be seen, the energy of that giving shifts. It becomes about performance, not presence. It becomes about the applause, not the impact. And when you give for the applause, you will always be chasing validation. You will measure your goodness in reactions instead of results, in recognition instead of real change. But the truth is, the deepest kind of giving leaves your name out of the story. Let your kindness be anonymous. Let your love be untraceable. Let your compassion be the kind that changes someone's day without needing credit for it. Because the most sacred gifts are the ones no one knows you gave. You hold the door and don't expect a thank you. You send the money and never mention it again. You offer your time, your energy, your presence not to be noticed, but to make someone else feel noticed. That's what matters, that's what heals, that's what lasts. You don't need to prove you're a good person. You don't need to defend your heart or announce your efforts. You know who you are when no one is looking. And that's the version of you that speaks the loudest to the universe. That's the version that draws miracles. That's the version that unlocks a deeper peace, a more profound joy. Because when you do good in secret, you stay connected to the purity of the act. There's no performance, no expectation, no keeping score, just love moving freely through you, flowing from a place of abundance, not ego. And yes, there may be moments when it feels like no one sees the effort you're putting in. You'll wonder if anyone notices the care you pour into others, the times you stayed quiet to protect someone else's peace, the ways you gave even when you were tired. But just because no one says thank you doesn't mean your kindness went unnoticed. Energy doesn't disappear. Love doesn't vanish. The seeds you plant in silence grow in places you cannot see, and often they bloom in ways you will never fully know. There is a peace that comes when you release the need to be credited. When you let go of needing to be acknowledged, you also let go of the burden of performance. You don't have to wear your goodness like a badge. You don't have to use your kindness as proof of worth. Your value is not in what others say about you. It's in the way you continue to love, even when it goes unseen. That is power, that is grace, that is divinity in motion. And in those quiet moments, when no one is around to see the way you choose kindness, when there is no camera, no audience, no praise, those are the moments your soul smiles the widest. Because you are no longer giving to be remembered, you are giving to be aligned, you are giving because love is your nature, not your performance. That is when giving becomes sacred. That is when your energy becomes unstoppable. So be the one who loves without needing the world to watch. Be the one who gives without needing your name attached. Be the one who makes a difference without ever needing credit. Because the real reward isn't in being seen. It's in knowing that in some small, quiet way, you became the reason someone else still believes in goodness.